All right, so today we are going to be solving quadratic equations. All right, and there's some steps that you can follow when you're solving quadratic equations. And the steps would be, number one, write the equation in standard form. And standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Then, once you have the equation in standard form, your second step is to factor the equation. After you factor the equation, the third step is to set each factor equal to 0. And then finally, the last step would be to solve each factor. All right, so write it in standard form. If it is in standard form, then you can go to step 2, which is to factor the equation. After you have the equation factored, you set each factor equal to 0, which will give you 2 smaller equations, and then you solve each factor, all right, or equation. All right, so let's take a look at a problem like if you're asked to solve by factoring. And let's say you've got x squared plus 6x plus 8 equal to 0. So the first step is to factor. So we're looking for factors of 8 that add to 6. So your factors of 8, you got 1 and 8, you got 2 and 4, and that's it. So we need to multiply to 8, and we need to add to the 6. And it's the 2 and the 4. So it's a positive 2 and a positive 4. So our factors are x plus 2 times x plus 4 is equal to 0. All right, the equation came in standard form, so you factored it, we factored it. Next step is to set each factor equal to 0. So we take x plus 2, make it equal to 0, and x plus 4 equal to 0. You then solve both of these equations. So subtract 2 from each side here. get an x equal to -2. And in this second equation, subtract 4 from each side. Get an x that's equal to -4. So your solutions for this equation are -2 and -4. These are also called the zeros of the function. The zeros of the function are also the solutions to the function. Let's take a look at x squared plus 13x. Equals -36. All right, first step is to write this thing in standard form. So we need the -36 moved to the other side. So we add 36 to each side. We get x squared plus 13x plus 36 is equal to 0. Now we're in standard form and we're going to factor this. So we need factors of 36 that add to 13. So factors of 36, we got 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, and 6 and 6. So we've got to multiply to 36, and we've got to add to positive 13. That would be the 4 and the 9. So our factors for this equation are x plus 4 times x plus 9, and the equation is still equal to 0. Next step is to set each factor equal to 0, so x plus 4 equals 0, x plus 9 equals 0, and then solve each one of those equations. So subtract 4 from each side. X is equal to -4, and then subtract 9 from each side. So the solutions to this equation are -4, -9. All right, any questions on either of those examples? All right. It's typically the same work we just did. You're factoring a quadratic, but you're just taking it one step further by setting the factors equal to 0 and then solving for each factor to find the solutions. So let's take a 3x squared minus x minus 2 equal to 0. It's in standard form, so you don't have to do anything else. All right, you just got to factor it. So when this leading coefficient is other than 1, in the top of this cross goes your A times your C. So this is -6. We got to multiply to -6, and we need two factors that add to this -1. Now the factors that we're going to list are the factors of 6. So you just got 1 and 6, 2 and 3. So if we use the 2 and the 3, and we need a -1, then we need a -3 and a +2. Then the next step, which is probably one of the most important steps, is where we did this fill in the blank technique, where the first term goes here, the 3x squared goes here. One of these factors goes next, so plus 2x. Then the other factor, minus 3x. And then the constant from the original equation, minus 2. And we drew these arrows like this. Then we grouped and we factored each group. So the greatest common factor in 3x squared and 2x is x. And when you divide x into 3x squared, you get 3x. And when you divide x into 2x, you get 2. This minus sign comes down, which is the same as a -1. So -1 into 3x goes 3x, or 1 into 3x, I'm sorry, goes 3x. And 1 into 2 goes 2. So our factors are x minus 1 times 3x plus 2. All of this is still equal to 0. So now you set each factor equal to 0. So x minus 1 is equal to 0, and 3x plus 2 is equal to 0. Solve for each factor. So add 1 to each side here. We get an x equal to 1. In this second equation, we got to subtract 2 first. So 3x is equal to -2. And then divide both sides by 3. And we get an x equal to -2/3. So the solutions for this function are 1 and -2/3. Those are the zeros of the function. Those are the 2 points where the function would hit the x-axis if it was graphed. And they're the solutions to the function. Anybody have any questions? All right, so as a reminder, after each lesson, each day, I give you practice problems. So your practice for today is going to be on page 229. (9 through 14). What you're supposed to do is complete these problems, check your solutions, and then do the electronic assignment. Okay? But it seems like a lot of you are skipping the step of doing the practice problems and you're using an app to type the equation in, and you're just answering the electronic assignment. And then when you get your quiz, you don't really know how to solve any of the problems on the quiz. Do the practice problems first. When you're done with the assignment, then you do the electronic assignment. Okay, does anybody have any questions on that?